Hello everyone, my name is Margaret. I am 72 years old and I live in Dallas, Texas. Before I continue with this story, please make sure you subscribe, like, and click the notification button so you don't miss my upcoming stories. And also, tell me in the comments which part of the country you're watching from. I love hearing where my audience is. Now let's go back to where this story really began. I wasn't always rich. For most of my life I lived on a fixed income, counting every penny. Some weeks I barely had enough for groceries. My daughter and her husband moved in with me when they lost their apartment. I thought I was helping them, giving them a roof over their heads when they had nowhere else to go. I never imagined that one day, the people I sheltered would turn against me. It all started the day I bought a simple lottery ticket. I never usually played, but that day, something inside me whispered, "Buy it." I had exactly $5 left after shopping, and I decided to take a chance. When I scratched the ticket later that night, I screamed so loud the neighbors must have heard me. I had won the jackpot, $25 million. For the first time in my life, I didn't have to worry about bills, rent, or food ever again. But with money comes problems. At first, my daughter and her husband were thrilled. They hugged me, kissed me, and promised to stand by me. They even said, "We're so lucky to have you, Mom. We'll help you handle everything." I believed them. Thought finally life was turning around. We could all live peacefully, maybe even move to a better house, and share happiness together. But soon their smiles turned into demands. Started small. "Mom, can you buy us a new car? Ours is too old." Then bigger. "We deserve a share of that money too. You wouldn't have survived without us." I didn't mind helping them, but when they started to act like the money was theirs, I knew something was wrong. One night, I overheard them whispering in the kitchen. "If she doesn't give us half, we'll make her. She owes us for staying here free," her husband muttered. I covered my mouth to stop from gasping. My daughter didn't stop him. She just nodded. That night I couldn't sleep. My heart pounded in my chest as I realized the people I trusted most might hurt me for money. The next day I went to an electronics store. I bought a small hidden camera, disguised as a clock. I placed it in the living room where they always confronted me. And just as I expected, it didn't take long for the truth to spill out. They screamed at me again, demanding half of my winnings. My daughter's wife leaned close to my face and hissed those chilling words. "Old lottery winners have accidents all the time. Very easy targets." That's when I looked straight into the hidden camera and said, "Did you get that?" The world was watching. Their threats weren't just private anymore. They were public, and there was no going back. But as the live broadcast went on, something terrifying happened next. My daughter's mouth dropped open as the red recording light flashed. Her husband's face turned pale. The wife who had just threatened me took a shaky step back, her confidence melting away in front of the hidden camera. They had no idea I was streaming live. You can't do this," my daughter shouted, pointing at me. "Turn it off right now." But it was too late. My neighbors, my friends, and even strangers across the country were watching. I had secretly connected the little camera to a local TV station's late-night program that loved exposing family drama. They had given me this idea after I contacted them a week earlier. I had a gut feeling my family would betray me, and sadly I was right. The phone on the wall began ringing non-stop. Reporters, lawyers, and even police officers were calling, asking if I was safe. My daughter's husband yanked the plug out of the wall to stop the calls. "This is insane. You made us look like criminals," he screamed. I stared at him calmly, though inside my chest my heart raced like a drum. "You did that to yourself," I said quietly. "The world heard your words, not mine." For a moment, silence filled the room. My daughter looked between me and her husband, her face twisted with panic. "Mom, you've ruined us," she cried. "Everyone thinks we're monsters." I wanted to hug her. I wanted to tell her that I didn't plan to destroy her life. But then I remembered her silence, her nodding, her willingness to let her husband and wife plan my accident. And the hurt in my chest was heavier than any hug could fix. The wife, the cold one, finally snapped out of her shock. "We're not staying here," she hissed. "Pack your bags, we're leaving." But before they could move, there was a loud knock at the door. Then another. Then the sound of flashing cameras through the window. Reporters, neighbors, curious strangers. The broadcast had pulled them to my doorstep like moths to light. I felt the walls closing in. This wasn't just a private family fight anymore. It was a public circus. The police came within minutes. Their car lights glowed blue and red across my lawn. When two officers stepped inside, my daughter's husband tried to argue with them. "This is all a misunderstanding," he said, holding up his hands. "We never threatened her. She's lying for attention." One of the officers tilted his head. "Sir, your words were broadcast live. Half the city heard them. There's no misunderstanding." My daughter's face turned red as she began sobbing, but her tears didn't move me. I had cried enough nights while she ignored the way her husband treated me like a burden. Now, it was her turn to feel powerless. The officers asked if I wanted to press charges. I hesitated. This was my family. My only child. Could I really send them to jail? I looked at her, and for one split second, I thought I saw the little girl she once was, the girl who used to hold my hand on her way to school. But then her wife glared at me with eyes as sharp as knives, and my heart hardened again. "Yes," I whispered. "I want to press charges." The officers nodded and began reading them their rights. My daughter's husband cursed under his breath. Her wife kept her head down but shot me one last poisonous look before they were led out of the house. My daughter, crying loudly, begged me not to do this. But it was already done. For a few days things were quiet. Too quiet. The reporters stopped camping outside after the police warned them. My phone still rang often. Friends checking on me, strangers sending support, even offers from lawyers to help me protect my money. I thought maybe, just maybe, the storm was finally over. But storms have a way of circling back. One evening I was making tea in my kitchen when I heard a car pull into the driveway. At first I thought it was another delivery or a neighbor visiting. But then I heard the slam of a car door, followed by angry footsteps. When I peeked out the window, my knees nearly gave out. It was my daughter. She was out of jail. I didn't know how. Maybe they posted bail. Maybe someone pulled strings. All I knew was that her eyes were red and swollen, her hands trembling, and her lips pressed into a thin, furious line. She didn't knock. She pounded the door so hard I thought the wood would crack. "Mom," she shouted. "Open this door. We need to talk." My hand shook as I held the teacup. I thought about calling the police again, but before I could move, the door burst open. She had used the spare key. She stormed inside, her hair messy, her face wild. "How could you?" she screamed. "Do you know what you've done to me? To my marriage? To my life?" I opened my mouth but no words came. "I loved you," she cried. "I defended you. I moved in to take care of you. And this is how you repay me." Her voice cracked. And for a moment, I saw the pain behind her anger. But then she stepped closer, her finger jabbing at my chest. "You're going to fix this, Mom. You're going to drop the charges. And you're going to give us what we deserve." Her voice grew colder with every word. "If you don't, you'll regret it." I staggered back, my spine pressing against the wall. My own daughter, the little girl I once cradled in my arms, now stood before me like a stranger threatening my life. I whispered, "What happened to you? When did money mean more than family?" Her face twisted with bitterness. "When you won the lottery," she said. "That's when everything changed." I could hear her husband's car engine outside. He hadn't left. He was waiting. And in that moment I realized I wasn't safe anymore. Not even in my own home. The lesson I want to share with you all is this. Money can reveal the true heart of people around you. Sometimes those you trust most will hurt you the deepest when greed takes over. Guard not only your wealth but also your peace. But this story isn't over. As I tried to step past my daughter to reach the phone, she grabbed my arm hard. "You're not calling anyone," she hissed. "Not the police. Not the reporters. Nobody. Her grip tightened, and I felt a surge of fear. That's when I heard glass shatter from the back of the house. Someone else was inside. The sound of shattering glass echoed through the house like a gunshot. My daughter's grip on my arm loosened, her head snapping toward the back hallway. "What was that?" she whispered, her face pale. For the first time that night, I saw fear in her eyes. I didn't answer. My heart pounded so hard I thought it might burst. Whoever it was had broken in through the kitchen window. The crunch of footsteps on glass grew louder. "Stay here," she muttered, but her voice was shaky. She tiptoed a few steps toward the sound, her body tense. I should have run then. I should have grabbed the phone or dashed out the front door. But my legs felt like stone glued to the floor. My ears strained to catch every movement. The figure emerged from the hallway. It wasn't a masked stranger. It wasn't a thief. It was her husband. His hair was messy, his shirt torn, and his eyes wild. He must have been waiting outside in the car, but instead of walking through the front door, he had chosen to smash his way in. "Why did you break the window?" my daughter hissed, rushing to him. "We have a key." "I thought she locked you inside," he barked, pointing at me. I wasn't going to wait any longer. Their argument filled the room, sharp and ugly. I slowly stepped back toward the phone, praying they wouldn't notice. But then the wife entered. She must have followed them. She stepped in through the still-open front door, her eyes scanning the room until they landed on me. A smirk curled on her lips. "Well," she said slowly, "looks like the whole family's here." Froze. The three of them now stood between me and the front door. My escape was gone. "Let me go," I said quietly, trying to steady my shaking voice. "You've already embarrassed yourselves in front of the whole world. Don't make this worse." Her husband laughed, a cruel sound that made my stomach twist. "Embarrassed? You ruined our lives, old woman. Do you think anyone will hire me after that broadcast? Do you think anyone will respect us again? Well, you destroyed everything. You destroyed yourself," I whispered. His face twisted with rage. He lunged toward me, but my daughter grabbed his arm. "Stop," she cried. "She's still my mother." The wife rolled her eyes. "Oh, please. She's nothing but a walking bank account now. The sooner you accept that, the sooner we can move on." I wanted to scream, but the sound died in my throat. My daughter's face crumpled. For the first time, I wondered if she regretted the path she had chosen. But then she looked at me, her jaw tightening. "Mom," she said firmly, "just give us the money. Give us half, and this ends tonight." I shook my head. "It will never end. If I give you half today, you'll come back for the rest tomorrow. And when the money's gone, what then? Will you still want me alive?" The silence that followed was louder than any scream. Somehow, I found the courage to take a step forward. "You've all lost yourselves," I said, my voice trembling but strong. "You've let greed blind you. You've forgotten what family means. I may be old, but I am not helpless. And I will not let you destroy me." The wife scoffed. "Save your speeches, Grandma. You're not on TV now." But she was wrong. The little clock camera was still running. The red light blinked faintly on the shelf. Every word they spoke was still being broadcast to strangers watching from their homes. I wanted to smile, but I kept my face calm. If they noticed the light, they might smash it. Instead, I asked carefully, "If you truly think I'm helpless, then why are you so afraid of what the world hears?" Her husband blinked, his head turning slightly toward the shelf. My heart skipped. Had he seen it? No, he turned back to me with narrowed eyes. "You think people care about you," he said. "They don't. The cameras will turn off, the reporters will leave, and you'll be alone again. When that happens, no one will be here to save you." His words were like knives, but I refused to flinch. For a moment the house was still. Only the ticking of the wall clock filled the air. Then suddenly, bang! Someone pounded on the front door. All of us jumped. My daughter's eyes widened. "Who is that?" she asked. The wife pulled back the curtain slightly, her face darkening. "Reporters," she muttered. "They're everywhere again." The pounding grew louder, joined by shouts. "Margaret, are you safe?" Margaret opened the door. It was chaos. Cameras flashed through the windows. Voices filled the night. My daughter's husband cursed, kicking the wall. "We can't stay here. They're not going to stop." The wife nodded quickly. "Then we take her somewhere else. Somewhere no one can find her." My blood ran cold. My daughter looked at me, her eyes wet with tears. "Mom, don't make me do this," she whispered. "Please, just agree to what we're asking." "Or what?" I asked softly. She didn't answer. Her silence was enough. The noise outside grew louder. Reporters, neighbors, police sirens in the distance. My house no longer felt like my home. It felt like a cage. I made a decision then. "You want me to go with you?" said. "Fine. But on one condition. You let me grab my coat from the bedroom." They hesitated. The wife narrowed her eyes. "Why?" "Because I'm old," I said. "And it's cold outside. If you want me alive long enough to get the money, I'll need it." It was a lie, of course. I didn't care about the coat. I cared about the second phone I kept hidden in the pocket. My daughter nodded slowly. "Go," she said. "But don't try anything." Her husband followed close behind as I walked to the bedroom. My hands shook as I reached into the closet. The second phone was still there, tucked inside the lining of my old coat. I slid it into my sleeve. When I turned back, he was standing in the doorway, watching me like a hawk. "Move it," he growled. I shuffled past him, the phone hidden in my arm. My heart thudded in my chest. One wrong move and they'd know. When we reached the living room again, the wife was waiting with car keys in her hand. "Let's go," she said. "Now." But before we could leave, something unexpected happened. The front door burst open. Not from reporters, not from police, but from someone else entirely. And the person standing there made my daughter scream. The front door swung wide with a crash that shook the walls. The reporters outside gasped, their camera flashes filling the night. My daughter screamed, clutching the back of a chair. Her husband cursed under his breath. The wife's smirk finally disappeared, her face tightening with something close to fear. And there, standing in the doorway, was my neighbor, Mr. Thompson. But he wasn't alone. Behind him, 2 uniformed police officers pushed past the crowd and stepped inside. Their flashlights cut through the dim living room, landing directly on me. "Mrs. Margaret," one of them said firmly. "Are you safe?" I opened my mouth to answer, but before I could speak, my daughter's husband stepped in front of me. "She's fine," he said quickly, raising his hands. "We were just leaving." "Step away from her," the officer ordered. The room was filled with tension so heavy I could barely breathe. Reporters outside shouted questions, their microphones poking through the doorway. Mr. Thompson, bless his heart, shouted back at them to give me space. But inside I was trapped between 3 wolves and 2 police officers. "She doesn't want to press charges," my daughter suddenly blurted. Her voice cracked as tears streamed down her cheeks. "She's just confused. Please don't take us away again." The officers looked at me. One of them asked, "Is that true, ma'am?" I swallowed hard. My throat was dry as sandpaper. "No," I whispered. "It's not true." The wife's eyes narrowed at me like daggers. "She's lying," the husband shouted. "She's old. She doesn't know what she's saying." I could see the officer's patience thinning. One of them reached for his radio. "Dispatch, we need backup," he said calmly. My daughter's husband froze. His eyes darted around the room like a cornered animal. And then, without warning, he lunged forward, grabbing me by the wrist and yanking me toward him. "She's coming with us," he roared. The officers drew their weapons instantly. "Let her go," one barked. The reporters outside screamed. Cameras flashed wildly, catching every second. "Stop," my daughter cried. "Please don't shoot him." But the wife. She stood perfectly still, Her cold eyes locked on me as if I was nothing but prey. Time slowed. I felt his grip crushing my bones, pulling me closer to the door. My heart slammed against my ribs. This was it. This was the moment everything would end. But then something inside me snapped. I yanked the hidden phone out of my sleeve and pressed the emergency button. A shrill alarm echoed through the house, piercing the air like a siren. The husband jumped, startled, loosening his grip just enough for me to twist free. The officers rushed forward, tackling him to the ground. He shouted and thrashed, but they pinned him easily. My daughter screamed his name, dropping to her knees beside him, her sobs echoing off the walls. The wife stepped back slowly, her face unreadable. "This isn't over," she muttered, her voice low and dangerous. The officers dragged him out of the house in handcuffs. My daughter tried to follow, but one of them stopped her. "Ma'am, you'll need to stay here," he said. She collapsed onto the couch, her body shaking with sobs. For a moment the house was quiet again. Reporters outside whispered to each other, unsure if the drama was finished. Mr. Thompson looked at me with worried eyes. "Are you all right, Margaret?" he asked softly. I nodded weakly, though my body trembled from head to toe. "I don't know," I admitted. The officers took statements from all of us. They promised to increase patrols around my house, to make sure no one else tried to hurt me. But when they finally left, the silence that followed felt heavier than ever. My daughter sat across from me, her face blotchy from crying. "Mom," she whispered, "please forgive me." Her words cut deep. For a moment, I wanted to reach for her hand, to tell her I still loved her no matter what. But then I remembered the threats, the nights of whispering in the kitchen, the way she stood silent when her wife talked about accidents. "Forgiveness doesn't erase what you did," I said quietly. Her face twisted with shame. She buried her head in her hands and sobbed. The wife stood near the door, her arms crossed, her expression cold. She didn't cry. She didn't apologize. She just stared at me like she was calculating her next move. I shivered under her gaze. That night I barely slept. Every creak of the house, every rustle of wind outside made me sit up in bed, my heart racing. I dreamed of shadows creeping through my window, of voices whispering threats in the dark. When morning finally came, the sunlight felt like a blessing. But even then, I couldn't shake the fear clinging to my chest. I made myself a cup of tea and sat by the window. Reporters were still camped outside, their cameras ready. Some waved kindly when they saw me. I wondered if they thought this was just entertainment, a story to fill their evening news slots. They didn't feel the terror in my bones. They didn't know what it was like to have your own family become your enemies. And yet, I also knew millions of people across the country had watched what happened. They saw the truth. Maybe that truth would protect me. Or maybe it would only make things worse. By afternoon, my daughter came to me again. Her eyes were swollen, her voice hoarse. "Mom, I don't want to lose you," she said. "But I can't lose them either. I'm torn in two." I stared at her, my heart aching. "Then choose," I whispered. "Choose what kind of person you want to be. A daughter, or an accomplice." Tears slid down her cheeks. She didn't answer. The wife, standing behind her, scoffed. "Don't waste your time, Margaret. She's with us. She'll always be with us." My stomach dropped. And then, just when I thought things couldn't get worse, my phone buzzed on the table. I picked it up, my hands trembling. The message on the screen made my blood run cold. "You can't hide behind cameras forever. When the lights go off, we'll be waiting." It was an anonymous number. But I knew exactly who sent it. I woke up that morning with swollen eyes. I had cried myself to sleep the night before, thinking of everything I had lost. My peace, my respect, my dignity. Paris had turned into a prison for me. What was supposed to be a new chapter of freedom had become a nightmare of betrayal. When I dragged myself out of bed, the house was strangely silent. No laughter, no clinking of plates, no footsteps echoing down the hallway. Just silence. I thought maybe I had overslept, but when I checked the clock, It was only 8 a.m. Something didn't feel right. I walked to the living room, and that was when my heart dropped. The big portrait of my husband that used to hang on the wall was gone. The little jewelry box I always kept on the table had disappeared. Even the curtains looked different. It was as if the house was slowly being stripped of everything that belonged to me. I ran into the kitchen, trembling. The gold-plated tea set my husband had gifted me on our 25th anniversary was missing. Panic spread through my body. I rushed to my room and pulled open my wardrobe. Every piece of jewelry, every silk scarf, every handbag, gone. My God, no, no, I whispered, clutching my chest. They were stealing from me. Piece by piece, memory by memory, like vultures tearing apart a dying animal. I stormed to the master bedroom where my daughter-in-law was sleeping. I banged on the door until she opened it, yawning as if nothing was wrong. Where are my things? I screamed, tears burning my eyes. She blinked at me and then smirked. Oh, those. We sold them. They were just collecting dust anyway. You don't need them. You're too old to wear such things. Froze. My legs felt weak. You sold them. Without asking me. Without telling me. I shrugged. This is our house now. You're just living here. You should be grateful we even keep you. Her words pierced through me like knives. I staggered backward, my hands trembling. I felt like a stranger in my own home. When my son returned later that evening, I thought surely he would understand. Surely he would defend me. But when I told him everything, he didn't even look surprised. Mother, he said firmly, stop overreacting. They were just things. You don't need them anymore. You should be focusing on your health, not on jewelry and furniture. I couldn't believe it. My own son, the boy I raised with love, the boy I sacrificed everything for, was siding with his wife against me. Those weren't just things, I whispered. Those were memories. Every piece had a story. Your father's gifts, your childhood moments, everything. My voice broke. But he just shook his head. You always make everything dramatic. Please stop embarrassing yourself. Embarrassing myself. Was that what I was doing? Or was I the only one who could see the truth, that I was being erased? Erased slowly until there would be nothing left of me. That night, I locked myself in my room. I could hear them laughing in the living room, clinking glasses, celebrating God knows what. I pressed my hands against my ears, but their voices still seeped through the cracks. I cried again, but this time the tears weren't just of sadness. They were of anger. Deep burning anger. How could they do this to me? How could my own son betray me this way? I looked at the old box hidden under my bed, the one thing they hadn't discovered yet. Inside were documents, letters, and one small golden locket I had kept from my childhood. I clutched it tightly, whispering to myself, they will not take this from me. Not this. Not yet. But then, something happened that shook me even deeper. The next morning, I woke to loud voices downstairs. I rushed to see what was happening, and when I reached the hallway, I saw strangers, 2 men in black suits, walking around my living room. They were pointing at the furniture, the walls, even the chandelier. What is this? I asked, my voice trembling. My daughter-in-law smiled sweetly. Oh, didn't anyone tell you? We're selling the house. My knees buckled. Selling the house. Yes, she said casually. We found buyers already. You'll need to pack up soon. I couldn't breathe. My home, the house I built with my husband, the place filled with decades of memories, was being sold without my permission. I turned to my son, begging him with my eyes. But he only looked away. Why are you doing this to me? Cried. Why, after everything I've done for you? No one answered. The 2 men kept discussing numbers, papers, prices, like my life meant nothing, like I was invisible. I wanted to scream, to throw them all out, but my body felt weak. My voice was shaking. I knew then. They weren't just taking my things. They were planning to take my entire life. And worst of all, I was powerless to stop them. But deep inside me, a fire began to burn. If they thought I would just sit back and watch, they were wrong. 'Cause I had one secret left. And that secret could destroy everything they were planning. The voices of those strange men haunted me long after they left. Their polished shoes had clicked across my marble floors as if they already owned the house. Their greedy eyes had measured the chandelier, the walls, the windows, not as memories but as money signs. I sat on the edge of my bed all night, clutching my little golden locket. I kept whispering to myself, "This is my home. They cannot take it from me." But reality was cruel. My son had signed the papers already. My daughter-in-law had convinced him it was best for the family. Best for the family. I wondered if I was even counted as part of that family anymore. By dawn I made up my mind. If they wanted war, they would get war. I stood in front of the mirror and stared at my tired face. Wrinkles carved my skin like rivers, my eyes were swollen from crying, but my spirit had not broken yet. I told myself, you raised this son. You built this home. You sacrificed everything. If they think they can erase you, they don't know who they're dealing with. But still fear crept in. Because deep inside me, I knew something that no one else in that house knew. Secret. Dangerous one. And if I used it, everything would change. Not just for them but for me too. Later that morning I went to the living room. My daughter-in-law was sipping coffee, her legs crossed like a queen, her phone glowing in her hand. She looked up at me and smirked. "Good morning," she said, as if nothing had happened. "Good morning." Snap. You call this a good morning? After inviting strangers into my home without my permission? She didn't flinch. "It's not your home anymore, Mama. Times have changed." My blood boiled. I slammed my hand on the table so hard that the cup rattled. "Listen to me carefully. As long as I am alive, this house is mine. And if you try to take it from me, you will regret it." Her smile faded. She stared at me with cold eyes, then leaned forward and whispered, "What can you do? You're old. Weak. No one will believe you. Not even your own son." Her words sliced through me like glass. But little did she know, I still had one card to play. That evening, I waited for my son to come home. I heard the familiar sound of his car in the driveway, the door opening, his footsteps heavy with exhaustion. He looked at me, and I saw guilt flash across his face, but it disappeared quickly. "Mother," he said, avoiding my eyes. "We need to talk." "Yes," I replied firmly. "We do." He sat across from me, rubbing his forehead. "I know this is hard for you. But selling the house is the best option. It's too big, too expensive to maintain. You don't need all this space." I clenched my fists. "Don't you dare say I don't need it. This house holds the memory of your father. The walls know my tears, my laughter, my prayers. And you want to trade it for money." He sighed. "Mama, please. Don't make this harder." I leaned closer, lowering my voice. "Do you want to know what will make it harder? If I tell everyone the truth." His head shot up. "What truth?" I let the silence stretch between us, heavy and suffocating. I wanted him to sweat. I wanted him to fear. "The truth," I whispered slowly, "about who really owns this house. About the deal your father made before he died. About the documents hidden away that could destroy every plan you and your wife are making." His face paled. "What are you talking about?" I smiled bitterly. "You think I don't know. You think I haven't seen how desperate she is to take control. Let me tell you this, my son. If you push me too far, I will reveal everything. And when I do, the world will not see you as a man of honor. They will see you as a thief." He stood up suddenly, his chair scraping the floor. His voice trembled. "Mama, stop. You're imagining things. There's nothing. Don't lie to me." I shouted, my voice echoing through the house. "I raised you. I know when you're lying. I know what you're hiding. And I swear on your father's grave, if you take one more step against me, I will burn every secret wide open." For the first time I saw fear in his eyes. Real fear. He opened his mouth to respond, but before he could, his wife entered the room. She glanced between us, suspicious. "What's going on here?" she asked sharply. "Nothing," my son muttered, quickly looking away. But I caught the way she narrowed her eyes at him. She didn't believe him. She knew something was wrong. And in that moment, I realized something chilling. My son wasn't the mastermind. It was her. She was pulling the strings, whispering in his ear, poisoning his heart. But now I had planted a seed of doubt in her mind. Dangerous seed. That night I couldn't sleep. I lay awake, thinking about the secret locked away in my old box under the bed. Inside were papers, legal documents, that my husband had left me before he died. Papers that proved the house could never be sold without my written consent. For years I kept them hidden, thinking I would never need them. But now they were my weapon. The problem was, if I revealed them it would create chaos. My son's reputation would shatter. His wife would turn against him. Their marriage might even collapse. Could I do that to my own child? Could I destroy him, even after everything he had done to me? Tears filled my eyes as I wrestled with the decision. But then I remembered how they had laughed while stripping my house bare. I remembered how my daughter-in-law called me too old to matter. I remembered how my son turned away while strangers planned to take my life's work. And my heart hardened. Could do it. I would do it. The next morning, as the sun rose over Paris, I made my move. I dressed carefully, wearing my black shawl and holding my locket close. Then I walked out of the house for the first time in weeks. My cane tapped against the sidewalk as I headed toward the lawyer's office, the one man who had handled my husband's will. When I entered, his eyes widened in surprise. "Madam, it's been years. What brings you here?" I leaned on his desk and whispered, "It's time. I need those documents, the ones my husband left in your care, the ones about the house." He frowned, but after a moment he nodded. "I understand." When he handed me the envelope, my hands trembled. The weight of the papers felt heavier than stone. This was it. This was my weapon, my shield, my revenge. But as I stepped out of the office, clutching the envelope to my chest, I suddenly felt a shadow fall over me. I turned and froze. Standing across the street was my daughter-in-law. Her eyes locked on the envelope in my hands, her face dark with suspicion. And in that moment I knew she would stop at nothing to take it from me. I froze on the sidewalk, the envelope heavy in my trembling hands. My daughter-in-law stood across the street, her arms folded, her eyes narrow and sharp like a blade. The morning light caught her face, but there was no warmth in her expression, only suspicion. For a long moment, neither of us moved. Cars passed between us, horns blaring, people brushing past, but it felt like time had stopped. She had seen me. She had seen the envelope. I clutched it tighter against my chest. Then she smiled. A small, cruel smile that made my stomach twist. She stepped off the curb, crossing slowly toward me, her heels clicking like the ticking of a clock. "Well, well," she said when she reached me. "What's this, Mama? A morning walk? Or something more?" I swallowed hard. "Just my business. You don't need to know." She tilted her head. "Oh, but I think I do. You see, when you live in our house, everything you do concerns us." "A house." The words burned into me. I turned sharply and began walking, my cane tapping faster than usual. But I could hear her footsteps behind me, light and confident, like a hunter stalking prey. "Mama," she called after me. "What's in the envelope?" Something important. Something that could change things. I didn't answer. My heart pounded so loudly I thought it might burst. When I reached the bus stop, I turned and glared at her. "Go home. Leave me alone." But she only smiled again. "Of course. I'll let you go. For now." She leaned closer, her voice dropping to a whisper. "But remember, old women carrying secrets, they can trip. They can fall. Accidents happen." Her words sent a chill straight through my bones. The bus arrived, and I climbed in, clutching the envelope as if it were my last breath. As the doors closed, I saw her still standing there, smiling, her eyes fixed on me like a predator who had already marked its prey. When I reached home, I locked my bedroom door and hid the envelope under the mattress. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely push it in. I sat on the bed and pressed my palm against the mattress, whispering to myself, "Safe. Safe here. They won't find it." But even as I said the words, I knew they weren't true. My daughter-in-law was cunning, relentless. If she had seen the envelope, she wouldn't stop until she discovered what was inside. I needed a plan. That evening during dinner I watched them carefully. My son kept glancing at me, guilt in his eyes. He pushed food around his plate without eating. But she ate calmly, smiling sweetly, pretending everything was normal. Halfway through the meal, she put down her fork and looked at me. "So, Mama," she said, her voice casual, "where did you go this morning?" I froze, my fork in midair. "To the market," I lied. "Needed some bread." Her eyes gleamed. "Really? Because I thought I saw you near the lawyer's office." The fork slipped from my fingers and clattered onto the plate. My son looked up sharply. "Lawyer?" he asked, his voice tense. I quickly forced a laugh. "Oh, you must be mistaken. My eyesight isn't good, but I know where I go. It was just the market." But my daughter-in-law leaned back in her chair, smiling smugly. "Maybe. Or maybe not." The rest of the meal was eaten in silence, the tension thick enough to choke me. That night I barely slept. Every creak of the floorboards, every whisper of wind outside, every sound made me jump. I kept imagining her sneaking into my room, searching for the envelope. So at dawn I made my decision. The papers couldn't stay in the house. It was too dangerous. I rose quietly, slipped the envelope out from under the mattress, and tucked it deep inside my shawl. Then I left the house while everyone was still asleep. This time I went to the small church 2 streets away. The priest there was kind, an old friend of my late husband. I trusted him. When I entered the dim, peaceful church, he looked up from the altar and smiled. "Ah, Margaret. It's been too long." I hurried to him, my heart pounding. "Father, I need your help. This envelope, it must be kept safe. Please don't let anyone take it." His smile faded when he saw my trembling hands. He took the envelope gently and nodded. "You have my word. It will be safe here." For the first time in days I felt a little lighter. I left the church whispering prayers under my breath. But as I stepped outside I froze. Across the street, leaning against a lamppost, was my daughter-in-law. She was watching me. Again. I walked quickly, pretending not to see her, but my knees were shaking. How long had she been following me? How much had she seen? When I reached home, she was already there, sitting in the living room with a cup of tea, as if she hadn't moved at all. "Out early again?" she asked sweetly. "Yes," I muttered, trying to keep my voice calm. "Went to pray." She tilted her head. "Praying won't save you, Mama. Not if you're keeping secrets." I wanted to scream at her, but I forced myself to stay quiet. She wanted me to break. She wanted me to lose control. I wouldn't give her that satisfaction. But inside I was trembling. That afternoon my son came to me privately. He closed the door to my room and whispered, "Mama, please. Tell me the truth. Did you go to the lawyer?" I looked at him, at the boy I had raised with my own hands, the boy I had once rocked to sleep. His eyes were pleading, desperate. And for a moment my heart softened. "Yes," I admitted. "I went. I had to protect myself." His face went pale. "What did you take? What are you hiding?" I hesitated, then whispered, "The papers. The ones your father left me. They prove this house can't be sold without me." He staggered back, his hand over his mouth. "Oh my God!" I grabbed his arm. "Listen to me. I don't want to destroy you. But your wife, she's dangerous. She'll do anything to get control. You need to open your eyes before it's too late." He shook his head, tears in his eyes. Mama, you don't understand. If she finds out, if she knows what you have. He didn't finish. His voice broke and he turned away, leaving me alone. And in that silence, I realized something terrifying. My son wasn't just weak. He was scared of her. Truly scared. That night, as the house grew quiet, I lay awake in the dark, my mind racing. I had hidden the papers safely in the church, but I was still in danger. My daughter-in-law was watching me, waiting, circling closer every day. I thought about leaving, about packing a small bag and disappearing, going to stay with a friend in another state until things calmed down. But this was my home. Why should I be the one to run? I had survived too much in life to surrender now. But then, sound. Soft, slow creak. The floorboard just outside my door. My blood froze. I held my breath, listening. Another creak. Closer. Someone was outside my room. I clutched my locket tightly, whispering prayers under my breath. The doorknob turned. Slowly, quietly. I sat up in bed, my heart slamming in my chest. The doorknob turned slowly, almost soundlessly, but my ears caught it. My chest rose and fell as though the air itself had thickened. I clutched the edge of my blanket, frozen, my eyes locked on the door. It opened halfway, and a shadow spilled into my room. Tall, lean, deliberate. The figure paused, listening, testing if I was asleep. I kept still, my breathing shallow, though inside my heart pounded like a drum. The shadow crept closer. The faint light from the hallway caught her face. My daughter-in-law. Her lips were tight, her eyes gleaming in the dark. She moved carefully like a thief. And in her hand, a small flashlight. She shone it around the room, searching. My pulse roared in my ears. She was looking for the envelope. I wanted to scream, to leap up, but I forced myself to wait. Let her come closer. Let her show her intentions. She walked toward the dresser first, pulling open drawers, rummaging through them. Her face twisted with frustration. She checked the closet next, pushing hangers aside, her movements growing sharper, more desperate. Then she turned to the bed. My bed. She leaned down, her hands slipping under the mattress. That was when I sat up. What are you doing in my room? She froze. The flashlight beam hit my face, blinding me for a second. Then she straightened, her mouth curling into a smile. Oh, she said softly. You're awake. I gripped my locket. Answer me. What are you doing? She stepped closer, her voice smooth, almost playful. Looking for what belongs to us. You think you're clever, Mama. Hiding things. But you're not clever enough. There's nothing here for you, I snapped. Her smile widened. We'll see about that. She took another step, so close now I could smell her perfume, sharp and heavy. Where is it, Mama? Envelope. Don't lie. Saw you. At the lawyer's. The church. I know you're hiding something. My mouth went dry. My mind screamed at me not to give her anything, not even a hint. So I lifted my chin and said firmly, You'll never find it. Her eyes narrowed. She leaned in, whispering, Old women have accidents all the time. Do you want to be one of them? Her words sliced through me like ice. But I refused to let her see my fear. I looked her dead in the eye and whispered back, You think I'm afraid of you? You should be afraid of me. For a moment, silence. Only our breaths, sharp and heavy. Then she stepped back, laughing softly. We'll see, Mama. We'll see. She turned and walked out, her heels clicking on the floorboards. The door shut behind her with a soft click. I sat there in the dark, trembling, but my spirit burned with anger. Enough was enough. The next morning, I knew I couldn't stay silent any longer. I called my old friend Clara, a retired journalist who had once exposed corruption in the city. Clara, I said, my voice shaking. I need help. My life is in danger. And I have proof that my daughter-in-law is trying to steal my home. She listened quietly, then said, Come to me. Bring whatever evidence you have. If this is as serious as you say, the world deserves to know. My heart pounded. Could I really take this public? Could I really expose my own family? But then I remembered the midnight threat. Cold eyes. The words. Old women have accidents all the time. Had to. I arranged to meet Clara at a cafe near the river. The air smelled of fresh bread and coffee when I walked in, clutching my shawl tightly. Clara waved me over, her eyes sharp and kind at the same time. "Margaret," she said, hugging me. "You look pale. What's going on?" I told her everything. The lottery win. The threats. The strangers walking through my house as if it were theirs. My daughter-in-law's midnight search. Clara's expression grew darker with every word. "And the papers?" she asked. "They're safe. At the church." She leaned forward. "Good. That's your shield. But listen, Margaret, you need more than that. You need witnesses. Proof. Something the world can't deny." I whispered, "How?" Her eyes glinted. "A hidden camera. You let them talk. You let them reveal themselves. Then we show everyone." A shiver ran through me. The idea was terrifying but also powerful. "Do you think it will work?" "Yes." She nodded firmly. "People like her, they think they're untouchable. They'll expose themselves if they feel too confident. Trust me." I took a deep breath. "Then let's do it." That night, I hid a small camera Clara had given me on the shelf in the living room. It looked like an ordinary photo frame, but inside it recorded everything. I sat in my chair waiting. It didn't take long. My son and his wife entered, whispering together. I kept my face calm, my hands folded. Finally she turned to me. "Mama, let's not waste time. Give us the papers. Give us control. You owe us for letting you live here." I stared at her. "Owe you? For raising my son. For giving him a home. For feeding him, clothing him, loving him. You dare say I owe you?" She sneered. "Don't pretend to be a saint. You're old. You're in the way. And believe me, old lottery winners have accidents all the time. Very easy targets." My son winced, but he didn't stop her. He sat there silent, complicit. My hands trembled, but inside I felt a surge of triumph. Because the camera was recording every word. I leaned back in my chair, letting a small smile touch my lips. Then I said loudly, "Did you get that?" Their heads snapped up. "What?" I pointed to the shelf. "The hidden camera. Broadcasting live on TV." Their faces drained of color. My daughter-in-law's eyes widened, and my son's mouth fell open in shock. "You're lying," she hissed. But even as she said it, a phone in her pocket buzzed. She pulled it out, glanced at the screen, and her face went pale. 'Cause there it was. A live broadcast. Their words. Their threats. Already spreading. The world was watching. The room exploded into chaos. "You crazy old woman!" she screamed, lunging toward me. My son grabbed her arm, but she struggled, her face twisted with rage. "Delete it! Delete it!" But it was too late. Clara had set up the broadcast herself. Nothing could stop it now. I rose slowly, my cane steady beneath me. "The world knows the truth. You can't silence me anymore." My daughter-in-law's eyes blazed with fury. She pointed at me, her voice shaking with rage. "You'll pay for this, Mama. I swear you'll pay." And with that she stormed out, slamming the door so hard the walls rattled. My son stood frozen, torn between shame and fear. He looked at me, his lips trembling, but he said nothing. He simply lowered his head and followed her out. I stood alone in the living room, my breath heavy, my body weak but my spirit unbroken. For the first time in a long time I felt powerful. But deep down I knew this was not the end. Because people like her don't give up easily. And now she was more dangerous than ever. The house felt different after the broadcast. The air was thick. The silence was heavy. I sat in my chair and looked at the empty spot on the shelf where the photo frame camera had been. My hands trembled a little, but my heart felt strong. For the first time in a long time I did not feel small. Then the phone started ringing. At first it was one call, then two, then so many I could not keep up. Reporters, neighbors, old friends, people from church. Some called to say they were proud of me. Some called to warn me. A few called to say mean things. But the kind words warmed me like sunshine. They made me feel less alone. My daughter-in-law's words kept ringing in my head. "You'll pay for this." I tried to make the sound go away, but it stayed like a gray cloud. She was dangerous. I knew it. And now the whole town knew her words too. For 2 days I stayed inside. I did not sleep well. Every time the door creaked, I held my breath. Every time a car passed, my heart raced. People came to the house. Some brought flowers, some brought food, and some just stood outside and stared. I waved at the kind people. I tried to ignore the ones who whispered. Then one night I heard a knock. It was soft, like someone tapping a twig. I felt the blood leave my face. I called out, "Who is it?" A voice I did not expect answered. It was a woman's voice. Old and shaky. "Margaret. It's me. Joan from the bakery. I heard what happened. I brought you some bread." I let out a shaky laugh and opened the door. Joan stood there with a brown bag. Her eyes were kind and wet. She came in and set the bread on the table. "My heart aches for you, Margaret," she said. "I wanted to see if you were all right." We spoke for a little while. Her visit calmed me. She left, and I felt braver than before. I told myself I would not hide. I would not be afraid. But the next morning something bad happened. My son left for work early. I saw him kiss his wife goodbye. He looked tired and sad. I waved at him. He did not wave back. He simply walked away. At noon the phone rang again. Answered. It was my lawyer. "Margaret," he said, his voice low. "I have something you must see. Someone tried to file papers today. They said you agreed to sell the house. They have fake papers. Come down to my office." My stomach dropped. Fake papers. My hands shook as I dressed. I grabbed my shawl and went to the lawyer's office as fast as my old legs could move. The lawyer sat me down and spread papers over his desk. Red stamps. Signatures that were not mine. Names I had never seen. Someone had tried to steal my house on paper. "You see," he said. "They tried to make it look like you signed. But these are forgeries." He looked sad. "We can fight it. But this is getting ugly." Ugly. The word felt like cold water. I walked home slowly. The street looked the same, but everything felt different. I kept thinking of my papers in the church. I had trusted them to the priest. I had felt safe. Now even paper could be copied and twisted and used against me. That night I could not sleep at all. I prayed until my throat hurt. I asked God to protect me. I asked for courage. I asked for a plan. Early the next morning, a strange car stopped in front of the house. It did not belong to any of the neighbors. 2 men stepped out. One was tall and broad. The other was small and quick. They walked toward the front door with big steps. I watched them from the window. My hands were cold. The men did not knock. They pushed the door and walked in like they had a right to be there. My breath stopped. I thought of calling the police, but I also thought of my daughter-in-law's last words. They had a way of making people do things. The tall man went to the living room. The small man walked through the rooms with fast eyes. My heart pounded. I thought of the church and the envelope. I thought of the lawyer and the forged papers. I thought of all the people who had stood with me on TV and then gone home. "Can I help you?" I called out, trying to make my voice steady. The tall man turned and smiled like the sun had gone out. "Mrs. Carter?" he asked. He used my last name. Sounded like a rope around my neck. "We're here to help with the sale. We're the buyer's agents. Your family asked us to look around. Everything will be settled soon." My mouth went dry. "I did not agree to any sale," I said. "My son. He cannot sell the house without me." The small man laughed softly. "We have papers, ma'am. The house will be theirs." I felt the world tilt. They had fake papers and now they had men in my house. I wanted to shout. I wanted to run. Instead, I sat down in my chair and took a deep breath. The tall man walked toward the mantel where my husband's photo sat. He touched the frame like a boy reaching for treasure. I stood up fast. Please leave, I said. He smiled again. Now, Margaret. No need to make a scene. His voice made my skin crawl. He moved a lamp and then the clock. He looked around with hungry eyes. These men were not kind men. They smelled of oil and leather. They were the kind of men who take what they want and do not ask. They were in my home. I felt like a small bird trapped in a glass bottle. Suddenly, a shout came from the front hall. What are you doing in my house? My daughter-in-law's voice. She was back. She had returned early. The tall man froze and turned his face toward her. Everything is under control, he said smoothly. She flicked her eyes to me, and for the first time since the live broadcast, I saw fear on her face. Her mouth tightened. She did not speak. She walked into the living room and stood like a queen. Who are these men? She asked. My daughter-in-law said nothing. She gave them a look that told them to do their job. The tall man bowed his head like he was their boss. He called the small man over and they began to move through the house more quickly. I watched them move. My hands were quiet. I did not scream. I thought of the envelope at the church and the lawyer's office who had called me. I thought of how everyone seemed to be closing in like vultures. Then I heard a small sound, a soft click, like a match being struck. First I thought it was a chair leg. Then the smell rose. Smoke. Cough. My eyes burned. A small flame licked the baseboard near the kitchen. The two men did not seem surprised. They moved faster. The small man pulled a cloth from his pocket and shoved it into a bottle. He poured something and the flame grew. My heart leaped into my throat. I realized with cold bones that they had set a fire. They were burning things, paper, cloth. They wanted smoke. They wanted panic. They wanted me to run. My daughter-in-law looked at the flame, then at the men, then back at me. Her face was hard like stone. She did not run to help. She watched as if she were seeing a show. The room filled with smoke. The men started to shout. Get out! Get out now! They yelled. The small man pushed me toward the door. The tall man shoved furniture in the middle of the room, blocking the way. I could not breathe. The smoke was thick and hot. My eyes burned so badly I could not see the room. I coughed and coughed until my chest hurt. My legs felt like rubber. I fought against the man who pushed me. I clutched my shawl and my locket. I thought of the church and the envelope. I thought of the lawyer and his papers. I thought of Clara and Joan and every kind voice that had come to help. The fire roared louder, eating at the walls, and I thought that was the end of me. My lungs burned, my eyes stung, and my legs gave out beneath me. Just as I sank into the smoke, a crash broke through the chaos. The front door burst open. Fire department! Voices shouted. Strong hands grabbed me, pulling me through the thick smoke. I coughed, choked, and clung to life as they carried me outside. Fresh air hit my face like a miracle. I gasped, my chest heaving, my body trembling. Neighbors crowded the street. Some cried, some filmed on their phones, some prayed out loud. But what I saw next made my heart race even faster than the fire had. My daughter-in-law stood on the sidewalk, her face pale with fury and fear. She tried to slip away quietly, but the hidden camera's broadcast had already done its job. Police cars screeched to a stop. Officers rushed forward. Margaret Carter? One asked me gently. I nodded weakly. He turned to my daughter-in-law. Ma'am, you're under arrest for attempted fraud, conspiracy, and endangerment. She screamed and thrashed, shouting that I was a liar, that the whole world was against her. But the officers held her tight. The two strange men who had set the fire were caught too, dragged out coughing, their faces twisted with hate. I sat wrapped in a blanket, watching the flames die down under the spray of hoses. My heart was heavy, but it was also free. My son stood apart, his face broken with shame. He whispered, Mom, I didn't know it would go this far. His tears told me he had lost everything. His wife, his pride, and maybe even himself. In that moment I realized something. Money, no matter how big, can bring out the truth in people. It can reveal greed, envy, and even cruelty. But it can also shine light on kindness, like Joan's bread, Clara's prayers, and the firemen who risked their lives for me. Viewers, I want you to remember this. Protect yourself, but never let fear silence you. Family should love, not harm. And if someone threatens your peace, do not face it alone. Seek help, stand strong, and trust that truth will win. Thank you for listening to my story. My name is Margaret Carter, I'm 72 years old, and I speak to you from Ohio. If you haven't yet, please subscribe, like this video, and click the notification bell for more stories like this. And tell me, where in the world are you watching from? I'd love to know. The fire took my home but not my soul. The law took my enemies but gave me back my freedom. And though I lost pieces of family along the way, I found something stronger: courage. And courage, my friends, is the real lottery win.